Hare Krishna. Dear devotees, please rise for Guru Puja and come forward. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bando Mui Sarvadana Mate Yahara Prasade Pai E Bhavatoriya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite
Shri Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitate Koriya Kya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya
Arana Kori Ho Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati
Charane Rati
Je Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Prasade Pure
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति यह होते अद्वितीय विनाश जाते वेद गाया हर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनारा बंधु
Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu
लोकना लोकेरा जीवाना लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना हा हा प्रभु करो दया देह सुत्रिभुवना एभ्यग्यास कुसुत्रिभुवना श्रीला प्रभुपाद पतित पावना नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्यत्यादिशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Please chant loudly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Astadara Sada Shri Srimad His Divine Loving Grace Abhaya Charana Arvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Astotarasata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki, Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Kadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Gaur Vadan Ki, Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki, Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki, Sri Nilachal Jagannath Puri Dham Ki, Ganga Maiya Ki, Jamuna Maiya Ki, Bhakti Dev Ki, Srimati Tulsi Maharani Ki. The Lordship Sri Sri Radha Radhanath Ki, Sri Sri Krishna Balaram Ki, Lord Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki, Giriraj Govardhan Ki, Sri Sri Gaurnitai Ki, Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki, Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki, Gita Week Ki, Shri Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnav Parampara Ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON Guru Vrinda Ki, Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to today's Sunday Love Feast program. Welcome to anyone who may be here today for the first time joining us. A very special welcome to you. Welcome also to our online community. So devotees, we know today marks the first day of Gita Week, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to this blessed week ahead. So starting off Gita Week program with Gita recitals by Kanhaiya Das Singh. And I'm sure Kanhaiya Das Singh does not need an introduction. Most of us know him. I see the smiles already. Most of us know him and how talented he is. Besides talented, how devoted to the Lord he is. And he is balancing his matric year with his devotion to the Lord. So let's welcome Kanhaiya Das Singh. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everybody. So before I begin with the Bhagavad Gita, I'd like to recite a few verses from the Sri Gita Mahatmyam, which emphasizes how glorious the Srimad Bhagavad Gita is. So everybody, please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Everybody. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bharatamrita sarvasvam Vishnu Vaktradvinishritam Gita Gangodakam Pitva Punarjanmana Vidyate. One who drinks the water of the Ganga attains salvation. So what to speak of one who drinks the nectar of Srimad Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita is the essential nectar of the Mahabharata, and it is spoken by Lord Sri Krishna himself, the original Vishnu. Srimad Bhagavad Gita comes from the mouth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Ganga is said to emanate from the lotus feet of the Lord. Of course, there is no difference between the mouth and the feet of the Supreme Lord, but from an impartial study, we can appreciate that Bhagavad Gita is even more important than the water of the Ganga. Sarvopanishado gavo dogda gopal nandana Partho vatsah sudhir bhokta Dugdam Gitamritam Mahat. This Gita Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all the Upanishads is just like a cow. And Lord Sri Krishna, who is famous as a coward boy, is milking this cow. Arjuna is just like a calf. And the learned scholars and pure devotees are to drink the nectarian milk of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bo. So it's also on the screen, so you can do with me, right? Thank you so much. Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samvitayuyutsavaha Mamakaha Pandavashcheva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya Kim no Rajena Govinda Kim Bhoger Jivitena Va Yesham Arte Kankshitam no Rajam Bhogaha Sukhani Cha Taime Vashtita Yudhe Pranam Styaktva Dhanani Cha Acharyaha Pitaraha Putras Tateva Cha Pitamaha Matulaha Sashara Pautraha Syalaha Sambandinastatha Etana Hantumichami Gnatopi Madhusudanaha Api Trilokya Rajyasya Heto Kimnu Mahi Krite Nihatya Dhartarashtranaha Ka Pritihi Shajanardana Karpanya Dosho Pahata Svabhava Prichami Tvam Dharma Samudachetaha Yachreya Shani Chitam Bruhi Tanme Shaishaste Ham Shadimam Tvam Prapannam Dehinosmin Yata Dehe Kaumaram Yovanam Jara Tata Dehantara Praptir Dhirastatra Namuyati Jatasihi Dhrivor Mrityur Dhruvam Janma Mritasya Cha Tasmada Pariharyerte Natvam Sochitamarhasi Swadharmam Api Chaveksha Navikampitum Dharmyadhi Yudhashreyonyat Kshatriyasya na vidyate Hato va prapshasi svargam Jitva va bhokshyase mahim Tasmadutishta kaunteya Yudhaya kritanishchayaha Karmajam bodhi yuktahi Phalam yakva manishinaha Janma bandha vinirmuktaha Padam gacchantya-namayam Apuryamana-machala pratishtam Samudramapaha pravishanti yadvat Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve So shanti mapnoti na kama kami Yagyartat karmano nyatra Lokoyam karma bandanaha Tad artam karma kaunteya Mukta sanga samachara Sahayagyaha prajasrishtva Purvo vacha prajapatihi Anena pravishadhyamba Esha vostyishta kamadhuk Yad yad acharati shreshtas Tad tad evetaro janaha Sayat pramanam kurute Lokastad anuvartate Shri Bhagavanu vacha Kama esha krodha esha Rajoguna samudbhavaha Mahashano mahapapma Vidyenam iha vairinam इन्द्राणि मनोबुद्धिर् अशद्धिष्टानमुच्यते एतैर्विमोहतत्येषा ज्ञानम् आवृत्य देहिनम्. Everybody all together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanam dharmasya तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम्. परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय दुष्कृतां धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय संभवामि युगे युगे. पत्रं पुष्पं फलं तोयं यो मे भक्त्या प्रयक्षति तदहं भक्त्या पारितम् अश्नामि प्रयतत्मनः. मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपा तमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरु दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरं श्रीनिताय पदकमलम. जय श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की, श्री कृष्ण अर्जुन की जय. जगत गुरु श्रीला प्रभुपाद की, सेवियर ऑफ द होल वर्ल्ड श्रीला प्रभुपाद की. 13th महाजन श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय. श्रीला गुरुदेव की जय. गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna, and a very big thank you to Kanhaiya Das. He started singing before he even started talking. Hare Krishna. So devotees, welcome once again to today's Sunday Love Feast program. The next part of our program will be a class by Her Grace Gaurabhumi Dasi. Before we move on, to humbly ask you and to remind you and to thank you for turning off your cell phones or for having them on silent mode so we can focus fully on the class. So a little bit about Gaurabhumi Mataji. She is a temple resident for the past 8 years. She's an aspiring storyteller who strives to live a life of consciousness and connection. She is passionate about using creative outlets to explore Bhakti philosophy in new ways, as most of us would have seen when we watched the recent Bhakti Theatre production. By qualification, Gaurabhumi Mataji is a specialist wellness counselor, and she used to volunteer in a drug and alcohol rehab center, and there she worked with patients both individually and in groups. Currently, Gaurabhumi Mataji works in medical insurance, and she's passionate. She says, I am passionate about realistic and humane spiritual growth and creating a safe space within spiritual communities and bridging the gap between mental and spiritual health. So Gaurabhumi Mataji today will take us through in the next part of our journey of this blissful week of Gita Week. So let's welcome Her Grace Gaurabhumi Dasi. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to share some philosophy, some inspiration with everybody on this very auspicious day that we are beginning our Gita Week. That's quite heavy. I don't know how the Lord wears this all day long, but okay. We'll try. Right, yes, we are kicking off a very, very wonderful week of celebrations, Gita Week, culminating in our, I think what the Hare Krishna temple is most famous for, the Krishna Janmashtami celebrations and the Vyasa Puja of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Just before speaking, we'll just sing for 2 minutes, Jai Radha Madhava. It's a very beautiful prayer that we sing before every discourse that Prabhupada would sing. And for those of you who are not familiar with what it means, it's just a description of Vrindavan, of Krishna and Radharani and the cows and the cowherd boys and the gopis. And that is what Prabhupada would see every time he spoke about Krishna. And it's what we can see every time we look around us. The temple is built in such a beautiful way that you cannot help but think about Krishna even if you don't want to think about Krishna. So we will just sing for 2 minutes. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavala Rivardari Jaya Gopi Janavala Girivardari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Vanachari Yamuna Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Anavala Ba Girivardari Jaya Gopi Janavala Ba Girivardari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki Jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan Lal ki, Shri Gaura Hari ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanande. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining me in that. So yes, today we are speaking about the Bhagavad Gita as it is. It is the start of Gita week, and subsequently every evening until Friday, we will be discussing the Bhagavad Gita. We'll be doing 3 chapters a day, and then by Friday we will come to the end. So today I will be speaking on the first 3 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, and basically we will just cover the essence of the Gita during this week. And culminating, of course, in the appearance day of Lord Krishna. And I'm sure you can all agree with me that if there is one foundational book that represents our spiritual culture, our tradition, what we foundationally stand for, it is the Bhagavad Gita, as it is. The Bhagavad Gita opens to a very dramatic setting. There is a war that is about to happen, a fratricidal war. That means family against each other. And it's between 2 sets of cousins, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. 2 sets of cousins, paternal cousins. And basically, the Bhagavad Gita is what happens, the conversation that happens before the war starts. And you'd be surprised, it would take us, months to read the entire Bhagavad Gita, maybe. Maybe a little bit longer. The entire Bhagavad Gita, the entire conversation happened in 45 minutes. Right? Yes, so it's the start of a war, and it is a conversation now between Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna is a Pandava, and he is on the righteous side, we can say. And he sees across his family, and he tells Krishna, please draw my chariot between the 2 armies so I may see those who have gathered here and desire to fight with me. And Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the charioteer of Arjuna. He says, okay, draws the chariot. And Arjuna sees his family on the other side, the men who have raised him and turned him into the man that he is today. So what started as a small family feud has now grown into world war. I don't know if any of us can relate. If we have issues with our families, sometimes, we don't get along with each other. I don't think it's ever resulted in world war to that extent. But this is what has happened now. It's resulted in war. And sometimes you may ask yourself, why was the Bhagavad Gita spoken just before a war? They could have met, they could have came together in a different setting and had this dialogue and ironed things out. Not that Krishna didn't try, not that the Pandavas didn't try, but why a battlefield? Why is this the setting for the Bhagavad Gita? And how does that relate to us? Well, many of us fight battles every day. We don't necessarily carry guns and have weapons and, physically get into things. But internally, we're all going through things. We battle with things in our head, our mind, our family, our friends, our environment, our job. Sometimes it's a real struggle. Most of the time, actually, let's be honest, it's a real struggle, right? But why specifically a battlefield for this dialogue? Because Krishna is actually saying that until and unless you focus on the inner conflict that you're experiencing in your life, you can't resolve anything external. Nothing is going to change outside of you until something doesn't change on the inside of you, right? Because sometimes you have to go through a material so-called breakdown in your life in order to have a spiritual breakthrough in your growth, right? So chapter 1 opens, the first verse is spoken by Dhritarashtra. He's the father of the Kauravas, the enemy side, you could say. And he is asking his secretary, okay, my sons have gathered and the sons of my brother Pandu have gathered and they are going to fight. They see each other, now what happens? What do they do? So Sanjaya is relating. He, through his, he is blessed by his spiritual master Vyasadeva, and he's got like an internal television that's going on. And he can see all the way, he's miles and miles away in the kingdom, but he can see in real time what is happening. There's no drone, there's no webcam, there's no live stream, nothing. But through his internal consciousness, he sees what is happening. And he's relating everything to Dhritarashtra. So Arjuna is on the battlefield and he asks Krishna to take him further in. Let me see who is gathered here. And these initial moments on the battlefield, for those of you who have read the Mahabharata and are familiar with the history, you'll know that the Pandavas have had a very hard life. It's not that they're strangers to hardship. They've gone through many, many things from childhood. But these initial moments on the battlefield are the most intense moments of Arjuna's life. And we read about it. Arjuna sees everyone before him, his family on the other side, almost 7 generations of his family. You can think some families, there's great-grandchildren and stuff. That's like 4 generations, 4, 5 maybe. But imagine 7 generations of his family lies in front of him. And he suddenly realizes that he has to kill them or be killed by them. The men who have raised him, formed his character and his integrity, who have even, fed him with their own hands. They're now on the other side and they will kill him if they have to. This is what it has come to. So we see the first 3 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. Each chapter has, of course, a Sanskrit name. We read the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and we see the English names for all of these chapters. The battle, observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the contents of the Gita summarized, and Karma Yoga. Those are the first 3 chapters. But if we look at the Sanskrit names of these chapters, chapter 1 is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Vishada means lamentation or despondency. Even lamentation is a type of yoga. Arjuna Vishada Yoga. There is an art to lamenting that Arjuna is performing. There is a yoga. The second chapter is called Sankhya Yoga, or the yoga of knowledge. And the third chapter, Karma Yoga, that is the yoga of action, or action in Krishna consciousness, in spiritual life specifically. So just from these titles, already we can understand so much of what spiritual life is about. That yes, lamentation is there, hardship is there, sadness is there, difficulty and strife is there. But knowledge, spiritual knowledge, the correct knowledge in life can guide our actions towards growth and liberation. Already in the first 3 chapters we can see that. So Arjuna is on the battlefield, and the Pandavas have been struggling, you could say, in exile for the last 13 years. All of the 13 years have led to this moment, the biggest moment in Arjuna's life. And what happens? Doubt just knocks him over. Reality hits him. And we read in the translation the experience that Arjuna has. His mouth dries, his body starts shaking, he starts perspiring, his skin starts burning, his mind is overwhelmed, it's reeling. Arjuna is having a panic attack, essentially. And think about it. You know, we feel bad when we have a bad day and we beat ourselves up. Arjuna is standing next to Krishna and he's still having a panic attack. You know? It's normal, even for the best of devotees, to have their moments of hardship and doubt, right? Because yes, Arjuna realizes his family is going to die and he's going to be responsible for this. It's going to sit on his head. But what does the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita share with us? That when we have compassion, when we have kindness and softness in our heart, but compassion in the wrong mood will always bring confusion. Arjuna feels sorry for his family, for what he has to do. But what is that feeling of sympathy doing for him? It's just dragging him down and down and down and confusing him, right? In texts 32 to 35, culminating in the second chapter, he's telling Krishna all the reasons why he can't do it, why it's wrong. What's the use of a good life without my family? What's the use of a kingdom? What's the use of everything that I'm going to win if I have to kill my family to do it? Better I die than be the cause of this pain, this suffering like that. And he lists many, many reasons for why it's a bad idea. And when you read them, you relate. Like, of course, you understand where Arjuna is coming from. And Krishna is just listening to him. But what the first chapter starts to show us is that we all have these major points of crisis and misery in our lives. But are we going to let them bring us down? Are we going to allow them to keep us in vishada, in despondency, in lamentation? Or will we understand that every experience we have in life, good or bad, opens a gateway to finding ourselves through something different, right? That we all have those moments of catharsis, right? You've cried and cried and cried, and something just releases. And the next day you can wake up and you can try again. Something's changed through that, right? We all have those moments, just like Arjuna, when what's in front of us is just completely overwhelming, right? And it's natural, right? When you face problems in life, you want to switch off. You want to escape. You want to not think about them, right? You want to leave them alone and just not ever have to deal with them again. But we can learn from all those experiences of hardship, right? But it takes effort and it takes work, and sometimes we're not in a space where we want to do that because we've already done so much of work in life. It's easier to just create distance between us and our issues. It's easier to do something else that just brings some relief where we don't have to think about it. You know, how many times, it can be the simplest thing. You know, you've got a couple of assignments that you need to study for, but you're really not in the mood. You just pick up your phone, you start scrolling. You know, some relief from this work that's lying ahead of you. You just want to get through the discomfort. But could it actually be, and this is what Krishna's point is, that all the problems that you're facing actually are not there to give you a hard time. They all have a different purpose. We may not understand what the purpose is right now because we're living the situation. We need to look at it from the outside. And this, you know, Arjuna has his whole say through everything, and eventually he just puts down his bow and he says, "Hey Govinda, I will not fight." And that's a big deal for a warrior, right? That's like, you know, Marsha is my good friend and she's a very good baker. But it's like Marsha saying, "Gora, I'm not going to bake again. I don't find any joy in it. I don't find any happiness. I don't see how this is going to help me." And it's all of us just like, what is that one thing that we just do for ourselves that we're known for and we just stop doing it. I'm not going to do it anymore. Arjuna's in that space. He puts his bow down. He says, I'm not going to fight Govinda. And Krishna then starts speaking to Arjuna and he says, well, don't be a victim of what's happening. Be a seeker. Seek to understand. Don't just accept what's happening to you as something that's out of your control, right? Everyone goes through problems in the world. Do you know of anybody who doesn't go through issues? I mean, maybe they pretend and, their Facebook status is full of beautiful things and that kind of thing. They put on this show. But think about it. Do you know anyone in the world who doesn't have even the smallest problem? No. Everyone's going through something in their own way. But Krishna says the difference is that a spiritual seeker will grow through their problems. Even if externally nothing can change, internally everything changes. And Krishna then assures Arjuna through the whole dialogue of the Bhagavad Gita that the situation you are in right now, Arjuna, it will give you a very unique opportunity to develop your spiritual consciousness, right? And that's why we go through so many things in life. And maybe that's why we go through them. Because Krishna in his own way is pushing us in a certain direction. We may not understand what the direction is, and that requires some surrender. But he's pushing us. He's putting us in certain situations, in certain experiences for reasons. And sometimes we just need to ask him what the reason is. We often don't engage with him. We try and solve our problems on our own without him. But maybe all we need to do is come to him and say, what is it that I need to learn or understand from this situation? Because the point of Krishna's dialogue to Arjuna is that he wants to transform Arjuna into the best version of himself through his conversation. And each chapter grows something spiritually in someone. In chapter 1, Krishna is trying to encourage Arjuna to become determined in life. Well, that's the one lesson we can take. When Arjuna puts his bow down, it really shows the existential crisis he's having. That he is ready to renounce everything he stands for because he's so confused and he really doesn't know what to do. And Krishna is saying it's okay, you can have doubts on the path, but know what you stand for. Be determined. Don't lose your will, right? And sometimes, yes, we doubt our duty, we doubt our identity, we don't know who we are, what we stand for. We believe one thing, our friends believe something else, and you feel awkward because you feel like the odd person out. Then you feel, well, maybe I should just say what they say so I can fit in like that, right? And we feel weighed down, but we need an identity and ideals in life that drive us forward with determination. When we have a vision in life, determination will come naturally to us, right? And think about it, Arjuna picks 5 minutes before a huge war to reassess his whole life. Like, talk about timing, right? Right? He reassesses his mission and his priorities in life. Because when you have a solid why in life, why are you doing this? If you know why you're doing something, you'll do anything for that why, provided you believe in that why. And that is the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna shares the greatest why, the greatest vision in life, is for all of us to embark on this journey that goes within us, to imbibe our spiritual consciousness and to grow that. So not only is the Bhagavad Gita the greatest book on how to do things, the Bhagavad Gita also challenges any excuses that you have as to why you can't take that journey within, right? So in the first chapter, one excuse that comes up is, I don't have time. That's something, I use that line a lot, all the time. Sorry, I don't have time to help you today. I have other service to do. Sorry, I'm working. Sorry, I have my sadhana, my rounds to chant. Or maybe I just don't want to help you. But I say, I don't have time, right? But look at the moment where Arjuna paused, right? In the middle of battle, right? Can we truly can we truly say that, the situation that we have in our life doesn't have any time or any space or any capacity for spiritual growth and spiritual reflection? Arjuna, maybe he didn't have the time, but he made the time. And we have it a lot easier than Arjuna in many ways, right? Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Jai. So before we decide about what it is that we need to be determined about in life, we actually need to know who we are, what our purpose is in the grand scheme of the world, right? Because we need something in life that keeps our perspective grounded as to why we're doing what we're doing. And once you have the right vision and the right perspective in life, you can find your identity again. So we see that by the end of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna has found himself again because his perspective is reset again. His mission, his vision is reset. But this brings us now to chapter 2. We're talking about the first 3 chapters. So the first chapter is about how to become determined and how Krishna refutes the excuse of, I don't have time, right? But chapter 2 now, Sankhya Yoga, the contents of the Gita summarized. So Krishna is beginning to speak the philosophy, the knowledge that guides us. And right in the beginning, Arjuna surrenders and he says, Krishna, you tell me what is best for me. So Krishna begins to speak and then he shares obviously the first lesson of the Bhagavad Gita. You are not the body, you are the soul. We hear the beautiful verses by Kanaya, Dehi nosminyata, Dehi komaram yovanam jara. All those verses, those are the words of Krishna directly and the lessons that he is sharing with us. So Krishna says, okay, Arjuna, you have affection for your family. That's fine. Everyone. We all have a heart. We all love someone, something very dearly in the world. And for you, okay, it's your family. Okay, but before you have affection for your family, understand who it is that they are, truly, They are not the physical shells that you see in front of you that you are crying for. They are actually spiritual. They are souls beyond the body, right? And the soul, in the second chapter, Krishna describes the soul, that is you and I, the spirit soul. All of us are spirit soul, and this body is an outer covering for that soul. Krishna describes the soul in many beautiful ways. He says, the soul it's indestructible. It cannot be cut by any weapon. It cannot be drowned by water or burned by fire. It is eternal. It is full of knowledge. It is full of bliss. This is who we are at our very core, our very essence of being. And Krishna says, yes, the body that you are crying for, it's just a dress that covers the soul, right? Let's see, I'm going to pick on someone else. Sita. Sita comes to visit me, right, in my house. She's wearing a very nice outfit, right? And she comes to visit me in my house, and all I can do is fixate on the Gopi outfit she's wearing. I don't ask her, Sita, how are you? How are you doing? How's your studies? When are you going back to Mayapur? This and that. How's your family? I just say, where you bought your outfit? It's such a nice color. Right? Does it wash well? Do you feel comfortable? Is it nice? Is it comfy? Is it scratchy? I'm just focusing on the dress that she is wearing, right? That's an incomplete kind of love if you care about the person, right? It's very misdirected, right? If you really love someone, you have to love them completely, in fullness, in totality. That means the soul first, actually, and not the body, right? So Krishna expands our conception of life in this way throughout the whole Bhagavad Gita. That life is not just birth and death, Arjuna. There's so much in between, and there's so much between death and birth again. And you're forgetting all of this. You're focusing on the external shell that's in front of you, and you're just crying for that. But there's so much more to your relationship with your family that's so much deeper. And Krishna says, no, Arjuna, you're meant for so much more. You have to inquire into your real purpose of your relationship with your family, right? And that's the thing. We usually act first and then ask questions afterwards, But the Bhagavad Gita, right, the second how to do something. Krishna is saying you ask questions first and then you act later based on the knowledge that you have, right? But the urge to find pleasure, to find satisfaction, to find happiness is what drives us all in this world. And that's okay. That's what's driving Arjuna. He wants a satisfying relationship with his family. He wants that familial love, that pleasure that comes from that relationship. We're all driven by the need to be peaceful and happy. We all just want to be okay at the end of the day, right? It drives everything we do, and we invest everything we have in our life to find that thing for us, that thing that gives us the ultimate satisfaction. But Krishna is saying in the second chapter that actually no, a truly wise person will clarify the purpose of their life first before investing all of their resources into something. It's a good investment, right? If you have a lump sum of money, you're just going to invest it into the first thing that comes on the stock market, right? You're going to do your research before you make that investment, right? And that's what Krishna is saying, that it must apply to every aspect of your life, right? And the fact that Arjuna now understands that you are not the body, you are the soul, that first lesson, it just reroutes his whole life and the way he interacts with everything after that. So that is the second chapter, that first you need to know who you are at your very deepest spiritual sense. And then you act and you live your life in a way from that point of view, right? We all have many identities in life, right? You're a son, you're a daughter, you're an employee, you're a friend. We have all of these roles, all of these identities in life, and they are functional identities, meaning that's how we function in the world, through these identities. But underlying all of these is our fundamental identity. Fundamental means the foundation of us. And that is, in the second chapter, Krishna says, the soul, the spirit soul. It's not that we reject the functional identities of the world, but they should be secondary to our fundamental identity of the spirit soul. We have to harmonize our identities. If you are a spirit soul, then you should live your life as a spirit soul, at that essence. Our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, when he went back to India for the first time with his American disciples, after being in America for about 3 years. So he had many, many preaching activities everywhere, and he was in Mumbai, and he wanted to have like a big pandal program, a big, like how we're having Gita Week every night, but in a venue somewhere with a big tent and deities, and every evening he wanted to give classes. So he wanted his American disciples to organize this festival, put it together. And they were struggling. They had never been to India. They don't speak the language. They don't understand the currency. They're getting sick from all the food and the water. So they come to Prabhupada and they say, we're really struggling to get this together. We really don't understand this country and how to do it. And Prabhupada just looked at them and then he says, the whole world considers America great. But what's the use of your being American if you can't do something great for Krishna? Right? Basically, yeah, and the devotees are wondering, Prabhupada keeps saying we're not the body, we're the spirit soul, but he's saying, what's the use of me being American now? Why is he focusing on my bodily identity? But Prabhupada is saying, use it in service for Krishna. Use your functional identity in the service of Krishna, right? Let your fundamental nature define who you are. And when we learn this, the second chapter, the next how-to that it teaches us, the first one was how to be determined. The second chapter teaches us how to make good choices and good decisions in life when we act from who we are, right? In chapter 1, Arjuna has all of these expectations on his shoulders, and he doesn't know how to honor all of his responsibilities in life, right? All of his roles. Should he preserve his morality? Should he please his family? Should he do what he's supposed to do as a Kshatriya? And what does he say, Krishna? Better I run away to the forest and just not deal with this anymore because I don't know what to do. But Arjuna was able to find his inspiration because he came to Krishna and he admitted that I need help. That I can't do this independently. The world is too confusing and overwhelming for me. I don't know how to independently find a solution. Please help me. Because you can be stuck in your problem and you can overthink and overthink and overthink, but no amount of speculation is ever going to give you a good answer. Right? And that is the knowledge of the second chapter, how to make good decisions and good choices in life. And the excuse in the second chapter, right? The first excuse was, I don't have time, right? So the second chapter, the excuse, I already know all of this. That's very common in our Indian communities. You know, all those poor book distributors who go out and try to distribute books. When you come to an Indian person, no, I have all the books, thank you very much. They sit there on my shelf, you know. We know all of this. We've been born and raised in this culture, right? No, we know all of this already, right? And we see that. Initially, when Arjuna is speaking, it sounds like very learned knowledge, his reasonings for not fighting. He sounds really put together. He sounds very rational. He sounds learned. But he's unaware of basic spiritual truths. And it's not like Arjuna is, but someone who doesn't know Vedic culture at all. He's been raised in piety and this tradition from birth, right? His father is Indra, the demigod, Indra himself. He's raised in all of this. But still, Arjuna's esteemed background, he still says, I'm confused about my duty, right? But Arjuna opens himself up to something higher, that there's a wealth of spiritual knowledge that Krishna can give me. And that is what Krishna is saying, as opposed to the modern world. The modern world today, they want to tell you what to think. Only think this. But Krishna doesn't do that. He teaches you how to think so you can make good choices. Even at the end of the Gita, Krishna doesn't say, right, now you're going to listen to me, right? No. Krishna says, I've given you all of this knowledge, think about it and do what you wish to do with it. Never forces him. But just says, I've taught you how to think. Now it's up to you to apply all of this. As well this is second leading into the third chapter, Arjuna's whole debate is that I'm confused about my duty. I've got all these identities, all these roles, and I don't know what to do. Which duty I should perform, right? Please tell me my duty, Krishna. So Krishna basically, he summarizes it and says, you have two duties, Arjuna. We all of us have two duties in life. The one is called Sva Dharma, or our worldly duty. Our duty to the world, to our family, to each other, individually. And then we have our Sanatan Dharma, our eternal duty. And basically this leads us into the third chapter where Krishna is saying now you have to do both duties in a balanced way, but with determination and with enthusiasm for both of them. For most of us, when we do our duty in the world, it's a way to enjoy the world around us. We do our job because we get our salary and we can enjoy that money, we can invest that money, we can take care of our family, but so we can live our life and be happy with it. But Krishna is saying, no, don't do your duty to enjoy the world. Do your duty as a way to get out of the world. Because if you do your duty to just enjoy the world, you're going to stay in the world forever. But you need to get out of here at some point. And Krishna says that the person who perfects this, doing their duty to get out of the world, is liberated without misery. In the third chapter, this is also, I think, where Arjuna is saying, better I run away to the forest, right? I don't want to do this. Because Arjuna thinks that if I'm going to be a spiritual person, Krishna, I need to renounce my work And I need to go live far away in the forest and not see anybody and just sit in meditation and drink water and eat leaves and fruit and grass. And, you know, when we think spiritual, we think like austerity and pain, you know, walking barefoot all the time and just not engaging and not talking to each other. You know, we have this strange understanding of renunciation. We have to retire from life as we know it. That's renunciation and austerity. But Krishna is saying in the 3rd chapter, no, if you're going to function in the world, connect all of the activities to a spiritual cause. That is true renunciation and spiritual life. How do you embrace your spiritual path but still continue as a contributing member of society? That is true renunciation and spirituality. And the essence of the 3rd chapter, that is what karma yoga is. That you don't deny the day-to-day world and what you have to do to live in the world, but you have to give up the greed, you have to give up the selfishness, and you have to give up the envy you carry that causes you to use all the materialistic, quote-unquote, things in self-centered and exploitative ways, right? You have to use everything in a life in a way that brings spiritual progression. It's how we interact with these things that makes the difference. If you interact with the world in a selfish way, you're going to be miserable, Arjuna. That's what Krishna is saying. So don't, you know, we want to own everything in the world. And instead of owning the car, the house, the family, the money, we are owned by all of these things because we don't know how to manage them in a spiritual way. And Krishna speaks then about how to overcome this temptation. He calls it lust. That is the enemy of the soul. Lust, this temptation to exploit and to own everything in a way that is just selfish, right? This me, I, me, and mine, basically, is what Krishna is saying. So Krishna says that you can do it in 4 ways. You must have conviction in life. You have to believe in your aspirations, in your purpose, in your value. Remember, we were talking about the determination we need. Basically, we have to understand why our discipline in life is important, because that clarity will give us strength in life, conviction. We have to have openness with ourselves, with each other, and with Krishna. We cannot have any purity without honesty. We cannot put on a show for the world and for Krishna, because he will always see what we are holding back from him. And whether, you know, you're winning or losing, you need to be open and honest with someone, because how will you get guidance? How will someone call you out on when you're doing the wrong thing, right? Krishna also speaks about safety. That's the 3rd thing. That avoid situations that you know are not good for you, mentally, physically, emotionally. Don't have a lifestyle that compromises your principles. Always ensure that you are safe at all times. Don't fight unnecessary battles. And the last thing he speaks about is taste, meaning invest in a life that gives you a higher taste for things that, grow you on all levels of yourself. And what's the excuse in the 3rd chapter? The first one was, I don't have time. What was the second one? I already know all of this, right? The 3rd chapter, what's the excuse? I have so many things I have to do. I've got so many duties. I've got so many roles. I've got so many responsibilities. What do you want me to do? Right? But Krishna says that, you know, prematurely just giving up all of your duties in the world isn't going to be helpful at all. It's actually extremely irresponsible in your spiritual development, and it will hold you back from growth in life, right? But if we just understand what our essential duty is, remember our fundamental duty, our Sanatana Dharma, and your Svadharma, your functional duty, if you just understand what both of them are and do that, you will be elevated spiritually. And we don't understand that just by doing what we're supposed to do, we elevate ourselves spiritually. Because Krishna sees that we are being accountable for what we have to do. We have to live a life of integration on all levels. Many of us, there are so many dharmas. We've talked about the Swadharma, our worldly duty, but even that, there's so many, right? Krishna talks about your Kula Dharma. That means your family duty. Sometimes certain families, they have traditions that they pass on, dharmas. You know, many of us in the world today, we see it like family business, right? That go from one generation to another. That's the family dharma, right? That's passed on. And you're expected to live up to that dharma, the Kula Dharma. Arjuna has a Kshatriya Dharma, warrior. Okay. Right. Our Kshatriya Dharma, he's a warrior. That's his occupation. We all have our dharma as employees, yes, as workers in the world. We have dharma. Arjuna is a husband. Some of us are in relationships. There's a dharma, there's a responsibility to being in partnership with someone. It's not just you're with them for the feels and the vibes, as it usually is, but that's actually not good, right? You're with someone and there's a responsibility to being with that someone. And then yes, Sanatana Dharma, your eternal Dharma. But Krishna says in the 3rd chapter that if your Sanatana Dharma is the foundation for everything else in your life, you will always be empowered and you will always be steady in life, right? It's okay, Arjuna, that you're a husband and a king and a son and a father, but be a spiritual husband, a spiritual king, a spiritual father. And we can all take that, whatever we are. Just be a spiritual, or try to be. It's not easy and we'll flounder and we'll have our doubts, but just try to be a spiritual version of that. Basically, Krishna concludes the 3rd chapter by saying, see your work as worship. See the work that you do in the world as worship of me. And when you act in spiritual knowledge, you will attain the greatest fulfillment in life. So just on this first 3 chapters, there's so much to unpack. We can understand that we are part and parcel of Krishna. And when we live our life on all levels in relation to Krishna, we are fulfilled, right? There's this term that we all know, the rat race, right? The rat race. We're all part of the rat race. The material world is just a race to do everything, to be everything, to get everything. But you know, even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. It's not like if you win the rat race, you level up to a rodent or whatever the next version or the next birth is. You're still a rat, even if you win the race, right? So Krishna is saying that there is a force in the material world that is constantly going to drag you down, right? And it will never stop being there. Even if you're an elevated spiritual devotee, that force will always be there. That energy of the material world will always be there, right? We are never going to be satisfied in the world. We're never going to reach that space of, I've got this now, I don't want anything else. We know that just in the working world, you get that promotion, and then you're like, okay, I got this now, what's the next thing? It's always that, what's the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. But Krishna's saying, don't cut off. Don't cut off anything from your engagement with the world. Just connect everything. And Krishna says that he is that undercurrent of connection. Work in knowledge of Krishna. Do everything as an offering unto me. And don't worry about the results of that. Don't focus on that. I will take care of that. You just work as an offering to me and leave the rest unto me, right? So just in conclusion, the Bhagavad Gita is an exceptionally powerful book, and I urge all of you to engage with it at some point. Even if you read it a few times and you don't understand it, there are many, many avenues. And no one explains the philosophy better than Srila Prabhupada. That's why it's called the Bhagavad Gita as it is. It is word for word what Krishna has said in that way. But the Bhagavad Gita is so powerful that it can take us from that lamentation, from that disillusionment to enlightenment, from defeat to confidence, as it took Arjuna in 45 minutes, right? And basically in this first 3 chapters, Krishna is asking us, will you do the right thing in the face of all of these obstacles? Will you turn to me? Will you engage with me? Will you take what I am giving you and just give it a try in your life and see where it takes you, right? Because if the life we have isn't based on selfless spiritual love, that is bhakti, right? The essence of everything is bhakti, devotion. If the life we have isn't based on that reality of bhakti, it will always be a source of disappointment and frustration for us. But that bhakti, that love, must have an object, and that object must be Krishna. Thank you. I'll stop here. I went a little over time. My apologies for that.
Hare Krishna. And a very big thank you to Gaurabhumi Mataji. Such an enlightening class, wasn't it? Yes, and so practically taking us through the Bhagavad Gita and relating it to our lives practically, which is what we all need. And as Gaurabhumi Mataji said, that we should engage with the Bhagavad Gita. So in this coming week, we have that wonderful opportunity to increase our devotion and our knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. Every day, every evening, from tomorrow until Friday, there will be a program starting at 6, from 6 till 7:30, where there will be a discourse, Bhagavad Gita's recitals. We heard Kanhaiya so soulfully doing the recital earlier on today. So we have Kanhaiya every evening. So please do join us for this. And it starts at 6, but from 5 o'clock, you are welcome to join us for supper every evening, and then you come to the program. There will be class, Bhagavad Gita recital, and Tulsi Puja as well. So you have that opportunity to worship Tulsi Maharani. Then that brings us to Friday. Friday during the day, there will be fruit and flower offerings throughout the entire day leading up until the 6 o'clock program. Then on Saturday, Krishna Janmashtami, program the entire day, and then of course what we all look forward to, the midnight Aarti. And then the next day, the festivities and the spiritual bliss doesn't stop there, it continues, and we go into Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja on Sunday, and we are all looking forward to that as well. A wonderful celebration and honor of our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. And then the following week is Radhashtami. So the spiritual bliss continues. That's on the 31st of August. So lots to look forward to in this month, and I'm sure we're ready to increase our devotion and our spiritual journey. So devotees, thank you so much for attending today's Sunday Love Feast program. Thank you once again to Gaurabhumi Mataji. And we wish you an especially blessed week, Gita week ahead, and we look forward to having you join us. So we'll have a little bit of kirtan now, leading into Aarti, Shringa Pranams, and then we'll have Prashadam in the white marquee. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.